Great. Okay, item 1, call to order. I call to order the regular meeting of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority of Directors, May 21st, 2026. Item 2, roll call. Martina, please call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum.
Certainly. Thank you, Director Hilliard. And can you all hear me okay? No? Okay. Starting with Bolinas Fire District, Director Claire Molesworth. For Mill Valley, Director Catherine Jones. Here. For the City of San Rafael, standing in today for Director Rachel Kurtz, Kate Collin.
Present.
For the City of Larkspur, Catherine Way.
Here.
For the County of Marin, Dennis Rodoni.
Here.
For Inverness, Catherine Donahue.
Here.
For Kentfield Fire District, Director Barry Evergettis.
Here.
For Marinwood, Bill Shea.
Here.
For Muir Beach, Catherine Murray. For Novato, Director Bruce Goins.
Here.
For Sleepy Hollow Fire, Director Tom Finn. For Stinson Beach Fire, Director Mark White.
Here.
For the Town of Corte Madera, Director James Andrews.
It's.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm here.
Director Fred Casisa, welcome, sir, for the Town of Corte Madera. For the Town of Ross, Director Julie McMillan.
Here.
For the Town of San Anselmo, Director Yoav Schlesinger.
Present.
I did want to announce that Director Christine Murray has arrived. For the Town of Fairfax, Director Barbara Kohler.
Here.
And for the Southern Marin Fire District, Director Catherine Hilliard.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Okay, item 3, agenda adjustments. Do members of the board or staff wish to have any adjustments to the agenda at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the board. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter that's not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 2 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and please mute your microphone when not speaking. Are there any members of the public present or online who wish to address the board at this time?
And for those joining us online, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If there's anyone who'd like to speak on items not currently on the agenda, please raise your hand in the reactions. And there are no comments at this time online or in person.
Thank you. So hearing no comments from the public, we'll move to item 5, Executive Officer's Report. Executive Officer Mark Brown, will you please provide the staff report for this item?
Good afternoon, everybody. Full crowd today. I love it. You would think that we're going through our work plan and budget today. Just a quick note about that, with all seriousness. Putting together this work plan and this budget was a very difficult task. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying it was difficult to do this, and it should be difficult. It's $23 million of our taxpayers' money. And we have important work to get done. So it should be difficult because we should put a lot of energy and effort into this work plan. I'm very proud of the work plan that our member agencies have worked with us to create. There's some amazing projects in there, and I think we are accomplishing exactly what we're supposed to be doing with Measure C dollars. Looking at the fuels outlook like I normally do this time of year, and I really like to look at the 100-hour and the 1,000-hour fuels. We could talk what refresher on that later on if you can't remember. But they're all trending down, and actually they're trending at historic lows right now. Even though we had that rain in April, the fuels are dropping fast. And when we look at the 4-month outlook, North Ops is predicting our region to have average potential for a large wildfire. In June and July, we are predicted to have above average potential for large wildfires. We'll see how the rest of the summer plays out in the weather and see how the rest of the months look. And then it was really interesting to watch the grass after it started to cure out in March, which was super early, and then we get all that rain in April. And I was curious to see if we would get a new regrowth, and we did. So it delays fire season a little bit, but it probably puts us on target for a regular start for having grass fires in our neck of the woods. But what it does, it adds to the crop of grass that's in there. And so there's going to be more energy in the grass fire than we normally experience. So different things that the firefighters are going to have to worry about on grass fires this year. As you know, May is Wildfire Preparedness Month. We're wrapping it up. We had our Community Wildfire Protection Plan community meeting on May 2nd at Embassy Suites. Very well attended. Some great questions. And what it was the presentation went well, the panel discussion went well, but the real money was at our tables where we had staff members from Marin Wildfire, staff members from every one of our member agencies at a table, so residents can go talk to the subject matter experts from their jurisdiction one-on-one, ask great questions, and get direct answers. And so that, to me, that was the best bang for our buck, was that tabling event. As a reminder, we are going to be going into strategic planning. We are going to pause a little bit, though. After talking to the operations committee, they had a strategic planning session, but they feel like there's some unfinished business for what they want to do. So they want to have one more strategic planning session themselves so they can pass along some information to you guys when you have your strategic planning session. And I've got a meeting on the books with Gene to start mapping out that timeline. We're going to be meeting on Tuesday. Been asked to testify at a couple different Assembly and Senate subcommittees. And it was a bit, as much as we know about Marin Wildfire outside of Marin and outside of certain circles, it's actually, people just don't know we exist or this type of organization exists. And I think after 6 years now, we are finally starting to get on people's radars. And after I testified at the Assembly, people watched that testimony and said, wait a minute, we want you to come back for the Senate. So what we're doing is starting to get onto the radars of many other people. I think I mentioned the last time we had a meeting that we had a success story in Inverness, and that is with bringing in mercury and helping people in Inverness get off the California Fair Plan. One person got off the Fair Plan. She purposely pioneered the trail so that she could share her experience with other members in Inverness. We have 3 policies now of people that have been taken off the Fair Plan in Inverness and are insured by Mercury, and there's a half dozen more that are in the process of getting quotes. We brought Mercury back into Marin because they called me up and said, okay, where else can we go in Marin? We want to insure more properties in Marin. So that picture on the bottom right is the Mercury team. They brought eight of their folks in. Some of them were catastrophic risk modelers. Some of them were underwriters. Some of them were part of their communications team. And then we also had what they call their wildfire team. And we went up and visited in Rancho Santa Margarita, which is right over here off of Lucas Valley Road, intermix area versus a WUI area. And then we also went into Cascade Canyon to represent a WUI area, brought them through the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break. And I'm not kidding you. They were pointing at houses. I want to insure that one. I want to insure that one. And so they're looking, we're going to expand our outreach with Mercury. Had a meeting, or we were interviewed by the Chronicle yesterday. Jennifer Howard from Inverness, who was the first person to come off the Fair Plan. We were interviewed by the Chronicle so that we can have a story in a Chronicle about this success story of getting someone off the Fair Plan and into an admitted carrier. After that article runs, that's when we will expand our outreach through Fire Safe Marin and our FireWise communities, that specifically targeting people who are on the Fair Plan. If you're on the Fair Plan and you meet these requirements, contact these people. Or even if you're close to meeting these requirements, contact the Mercury Wildfire team and they can work with you to get off the Fair Plan. And the idea is, after we were successful in Inverness, to get Mercury into other parts of Marin, and then when Mercury blazed the trail into Marin, to have other insurers see what Mercury is doing and have them follow Mercury. And I've got CSAs, I'll be meeting with CSA next week, so try to entice them to do something similar. So hopefully we're going to start seeing a snowball effect with insurance. You may be wondering why I put 80% with an exclamation point next to it. If you remember in our JPA language, there was a requirement that within 5 years that we would have spent at least 80% of the revenue generated in each of the zones spent in that zone. We met that goal after 5 years, and it's part of the package in consent where we talk about closing out fiscal year 24-25. So it took a lot of work to get there, because if you remember year one, we didn't spend much money at all. So we really had to push hard. And we shouldn't just be spending the taxpayers' money to spend taxpayers' money. We should be spending it on good projects, but we also should not be sitting on the taxpayers' dollars. We should be putting them to good use. And on that same table where we track the 80%, we are also tracking how much of the core dollars have been spent. We've spent 95% of the core dollars through our first fiscal years. So we are not sitting on taxpayers' dollars, we're putting it to good use. But we're also still maintaining our strategic reserve and our rolling reserve so that we can have funding through the dry period when we don't get tax dollars from the county from July 1 to about December. Is that window that we need to be able to fund. It always seems like this comes up so fast, but it is time for board members who are interested in being our next president and vice president. And our typical ascension is from vice president, we'll go up to president. It's not an automatic, but that's been our practice. And then what we need to do, most importantly though, is find someone who's willing to step up and be our next vice president. And so the way that process goes is you send me either an email or a letter of intent that says, I would like to be the next vice president. And obviously we'll be looking for Barbara to send her letter of intent for president. And then goodbyes. You may have heard from from me or during different meetings, two of our important members are going to be leaving us, and for good reasons. Josh Hampshire, who's one of the people I consider our OG, he right after we hired Ann, we had our interviews for our first Grizzly Corps members. Josh was one of our first Grizzly Corps members, and then came over and started working as our grant specialist. Josh is going to follow the family career path and get into medicine. His whole family's in medicine, so he's going to be converting over to the medicine. And then Jacob Dadman, who is here today, one of our vegetation management specialists, he's being really selfish and deciding to go get his graduate degree. So he's been amazing for us. Josh has been amazing for us, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. I hope they're proud when they look at Marin Wildfire, because it's a rare opportunity that you get to come on board to a new and emerging government entity. And I think we're making a difference. And I hope that they look back at this portion of their lives, of their careers, and are proud and understand their fingerprints are all over Marin Wildfire and what we've done. So thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jacob. And with that, I'll take questions.
Do members of the board have comments or questions? Director McMillan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark. I'm just wondering if you could compare the coverage from the Mercury plan versus the FAIR plan, and also the cost for the Mercury plan versus the FAIR plan.
A good executive officer would have built that into his report.
The past president called you out on it.
Perfect question. So Jennifer, and this will be in the article, Jennifer was paying over $10,000 a year for her FAIR plan. Even though she's not on the FAIR plan anymore, she just got the rate increase letter from the FAIR plan. She was going to be over $11,000 this year. With Mercury, she's at $4,000. So she has a $6,000 to $7,000 a year savings, which actually ties into something that we are exploring with multiple local banks to set up low interest, short-term loans to support people with home hardening defensible space. I can't list them yet just because we haven't sealed the deal, but we're in discussions now. And the idea is that some people won't have the financial resources to get past that hurdle to get off the California Fair Plan. For some of the work might exceed what they have the financial resources for. But perhaps if they can get a low interest short-term loan and then use the savings that they have from going to the Fair Plan to an admitted market plan, they can use that savings to pay off that low interest loan.
Thank you. Director Rodoni.
Yeah, thank you. And Mark, I just saw that this week, the Cal Fair Plan announced a 29% increase for next year.
Director McMillan.
Sorry, what's the difference in coverage?
So her coverage is actually, improved actually. Her coverage is improved, and her previous, she had to have the California Fair Plan and is wildfire only, and then you have to have a second plan to cover everything else. So, and the thresholds that she had with the Fair Plan as far as what was going to pay out was going to be lower than what she has with Mercury.
Thank you.
Director Way.
So I listened to a interesting interview with Daniel Swain, our friend and colleague for this team, about this super El Nino that is coming in this year. The hotter, wetter, drier super El Nino, which is like a once in a 1,000-year super El Nino. So we're keeping track of, we're keeping track of what that may do to influence our vegetation in the next 6 months?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The thing is though, we've been since day one working at max effort. And so it's hard for us to be able to ramp up the effort, but if monitoring that could weigh into some strategic decisions that maybe we'll do a little bit more work over here rather than over there.
By the way, it was a really good interview if anybody wants to look it up, because he has spoken at our wildfire prevention meeting 2 years ago, I believe. But the super El Nino is pretty terrifying in some ways, what's going to happen.
And he does a great job of making complicated science understandable.
I have a question about CSAA, the California State Automobile Association. What got them interested, and do we have any real hope that they might want to do the same as Mercury?
They're actually one of the more aggressive home insurance carriers for insuring in high-risk areas already. So they already have a large footprint into home insurance, and they've already been quite aggressive in getting into high-risk areas. And so that's why we think that's one of the reasons why they're the next ones calling us.
Great work. In the past, we also talked about dealing with the insurance covers that cover the insurance companies. It's a level up. What do you call those?
Reinsurance.
Reinsurance. And have we done any more progress with them?
We've been invited to present to reinsurers by some of the insurance industry so that they can see the type of work that's going on to make the reinsurance industry feel more comfortable about the investment they're making through the insurers. So not direct with the reinsurers, but through the insurers themselves.
Thank you so much. Other comments and questions? Is there anyone online? I'll take comments from the public. Anyone here or online that wish to make a comment or a question?
There are no comments at this time.
Thank you so much. So seeing no more, are there any other comments? Did anyone think of something in the meantime? Okay. Seeing no more comments, let's bring this back to the board. If there's no more discussion, this doesn't require a motion. So we will move on to item 6, the consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar items will occur prior to the board's discussion of the consent calendar. The board may approve the entire consent calendar with one action, and the alternative items on the consent calendar may be removed by any board member or staff member for separate discussion and vote. So I will now take comments from the public on the consent calendar. Anyone present or online who wishes to make a comment on the consent calendar?
I see no comments at this time.
Okay, no comments. Going back to the board, do any of the board members wish to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 6C.
Director Schlesinger would like to, that's your name, right?
Yes.
Okay, would like to pull item 6C. which is professional services agreement with the town of San Anselmo. So we will now look at the rest of the consent calendar and take a vote on it. Yes.
I want to move the rest of the consent calendar minus 6C.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you.
Director Kohler. And do I have a second?
I would second.
Director Goins, second. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes, and now we will move to 6C. Director Schlesinger.
Thank you. I apologize for pulling the item, but this is my only way to actually make a comment about it. So I'm going to take the opportunity. I am really proud of this partnership. I think what we're doing here in having the town of San Anselmo provide financial services to MWPA is exactly how public agencies should collaborate and work together. And it's such a win-win for both agencies and both entities. By having us provide financial services, it's really increasing efficiency and it's building a stronger connection between the two entities. So I'm really proud of it. And I want to say, nobody asked me about this, but if they had asked me about this, I would have answered how much in favor I was of this agreement because we have such a talented staff in San Anselmo that they can actually handle this additional workload without compromising the work that they're doing for the town. Without such talented staff, I might have had other concerns about it, but our staff is really great. So I want to take the opportunity to also shout them out because it's really a credit to them that we can actually take on this work for MWPA. So that's the reason I pulled it. I just wanted to make that onto the record. So thank you.
So much. Yes. Director Kohler.
Yeah, I want to echo those comments and also say that Jeff Zuba and his team are our finance team for the Ross Valley Fire Board, which I sit on with Director Finn and others. They're an excellent team, and I'm sure you all read the staff report where not only are we getting an incredible team, but we're saving some money. So with that, it's a great move.
Okay, Director Finn.
Just a quick question regarding the text of the agreement itself. It omits to mention any data security provisions that should apply. Could we at least at a minimum ask that include a statement that the town will apply the same standard that it applies to its own data when it comes to things like a data breach and recovery plan notifications, those sorts of things? They are handling all of our data. There is some skepticism among certain members of the public about whether our data is accessible to insurance companies or not, which it is not, but I think we should have a data security provision in there.
That's a great catch on that. Thank you very much, and we'll make sure to add it.
Any other comments? If not, we will now take a vote on item 6C. Oh, yes, thank you. It's now time for the public to comment on item 6C. Are there any members of the public present or online that wish to comment on item 6C, the agreement?
I see Jeff Zuba online, so if he doesn't raise his hand, he's given up his last chance to.
Has he raised his hand?
No.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I
So I
wanna-
think what we are considering now is amended language. Item 6C with amended language.
Yeah, and I would move it that way.
Good. So moved by Director Kohler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Wonderful.
Can I just mention something? So I'm on the board of the Media Center, and I know you all feel that you can be heard in this room, but you're not heard on the recording unless your mic is on. So just a reminder, we need to do that, even though it seems awkward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kohler. Let's move to item 7, staff reports. Finance report for Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. A representative of the finance team will provide the staff report on this item. Who do we have online who will do this?
Good afternoon. This is Karen Scalabrini.
Karen, please go ahead.
Well, I will make it short for you. So far, as we are at about 75% of the year, and keep in mind that this financial report is as of March 31st, so 75% of the fiscal year. with operating expenditures at about 63%. And revenues are at 57% as of March. But I wanted to point out within your report that the revenues, since this doesn't go through April, we did receive Measure C funds in, and once those funds, you'll see on the report next month, the revenues are at 95% for the year. So I thought that that was a very important addition. So I was told to keep this brief because I know you have a full agenda. I know the core program is at 69% of the budget. And if are there any questions regarding the report?
What percent of the year are we in?
For this report, it would be 75% of the year.
Okay, so at 69, we're below that. So
Yes.
thank you so much. Any other questions? Hearing none? Okay. I'll now take questions from the board. Any other members of the board wish to ask questions about finance? Seeing none, I'll take public comments. Is there any member of the public here or online who wishes to comment on the finance report?
There are no comments at this time.
Seeing no comment, let's come back to the board for any additional discussion. Anyone have a really urgent need to talk about this? Okay, seeing none, no motion is required. So we'll go to item 7B, work plan implementation. Planning and Program Manager Ann Krelock will provide the board with a staff report on this item. Ann, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. Since Mark covered the CWPP, I'm not going to talk about that too much, except to note that we do have a great CWPP webpage, which includes a story map and a viewer. Folks can explore that and click on a map and check out what the priorities are in different evacuation zones. So I want to invite you all to take a look at our website. On our homepage, there's a banner that talks about the CWPP, and you just click there and you should be able to find it. I wanted to highlight a field trip that we just had in April. We love to bring the public out to project areas, and this time we worked with San Rafael Fire, as well as, of course, the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, and brought folks out to San Rafael Hill to see where work had been done, a lot of non-native invasive understory gorse and broom and things like that. And then some pile burns that had taken place. They've done about 100 pile burns, have about 150 left of materials, managing the materials left over from vegetation management. The next field trip is going to be at the Greater Mill Valley Fuel Break. So we'll be working with Southern Marin Wildfire to bring folks out there, and we'd love to get neighbors out to that field trip as well. So we'll be distributing information soon, and we'll be working with staff to finalize that date. This photo also includes Belle Cole. I didn't include a photo from her birthday party, but we recently hosted a birthday party for Belle Cole, who, turned 29 again, and along with me. And we just had a lovely time in San Rafael. Fire Safe Marin helped take care of the logistics of that event, and we had a really lovely time with Belle's family and many folks in the environmental community and the carbon community, really celebrating this kind of wondrous person who's been working in Marin and elsewhere for many decades, making the world a better place. So happy birthday, Belle. A few other items, just as an FYI. We're moving along with all of these programs. We have the Defensible Space program that is bringing on a whole bunch of new inspectors. The MDSA will be at 30 inspectors by next week, and the academy is starting on Tuesday, I believe, about 1,800 inspections completed through that program. In addition, San Rafael and Novato are doing their own inspections and well underway. We've got the chipper program, about 1,000 pickups already complete and many more to go. In the grant program, we have about 360 grants either in progress or awarded through the JPA-wide program. And then, of course, several member agencies have their own programs. And I think I'll just leave it there because we have plenty else to talk about today. Happy to take questions, though.
Okay, board members, Are there any questions or comments? We've been reviewing this for a while, so none of this information should be new to anyone. But if you have a last-minute comment, I'm sure we would love to entertain it. Any no comments? Good work. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so now we'll take questions from the public. Are there any members of the public here or online who wish to make comments on this?
There are no comments at this time.
Okay, seeing no more comments, let's go back to the board for discussion. Anybody really have a burning desire to say something? Except congratulations for all of us for getting this far. It's an excellent plan. Okay, so no motion is required. So now we're going to move on to the action items. Okay, item 8, the draft fiscal year 2026-27 MWPA work plan. And Krelock will provide the board with a staff report on this item. Anne, it's yours again.
Great. So we're going to take a moment and we'll take a look at the process that we took this year to develop the fiscal year 26-27 work plan. We'll look at the overall budget. I'll give you an update on the JPA-wide proposals and changes since last time we discussed. So you'll remember in April, we went through and gave an overview of each of those proposals. So I won't do that in detail today because we've already talked about those, but I want to make sure that you're aware of where some of the questions landed. So we'll do that. And then we'll do an overview, a very high-level overview of the proposals that each of the member agencies came up with for each of the zones. So we'll do that. And then I've got some graphs and pie charts that we can run through just to see where we landed in terms of where those dollars are going in terms of the buckets, each goal, things like that. And then we've got Chief Mahoney here, the chair of the Operations Committee, and we'll make sure to hear from the Operations Committee. They play such a pivotal role in this whole process. And then we'll end with a recommendation. Happy to discuss, answer questions, and hopefully we also have member agency staff here who can help answer questions as needed. So the notorious slide here is, it outlines the process. This is kind of our to-do list each season. We start off kicking off the process with bringing the ATC and the Operations Committee together, bringing those land management agencies into the conversation, making sure that everyone is coordinating. We choose a chair and vice chair. The Operations Committee develops their guidance for the ATC to be considering as ATC members, Advisory Technical Committee members are proposing projects for the work plan. Then it's go time. We at Marin Wildfire think about JPA-wide proposals. So those are the proposals that really affect the whole Joint Powers Authority area. So public education, environmental compliance, the operation related expenses for Marin Wildfire, et cetera. Then the member agencies dive in and submit their proposals for their zones. And then we talk a lot about where those proposals land in terms of priority. The Operations Committee gets very involved in thinking through kind of strategically how this all fits together and how the dollars fit and if this all makes sense and achieves the goals that we're hoping to achieve. And then we do a lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings, a lot of ad hoc subcommittee meetings to dive into the details of these proposals. And then we start talking about it with you all. So this year we talked about it in multiple meetings because it is so much content. It is too much to jam into one meeting in May and then make a decision about it. So plenty of communication around it. I'm just going to quickly review what the Operations Committee came up with this year in terms of the guidance. We want to continue working from the house out, working to harden homes and do defensible space, and moving out from there to do vegetation management along roads and shaded fuel breaks at the WUI boundary and even some areas beyond. But we really want to focus on the home. So house out approach continues. Home hardening defensible space, continue to reduce wildfire risk to communities by providing resources directly to residents for home hardening and defensible space activities, shaded fuel breaks, I won't read all of this. Prescribed fire continues to be a priority. Evacuation planning, doing vegetation management along roadways, insurance, as Mark mentioned, making sure homes are insurable, and we're controlling the costs. Public education continues to be a priority, especially beyond the usual audience, and especially around Zone Zero and the items that members of the public can do to really make a difference at their homes. And then the new item this year was ignition reductions, so reducing ignition potential with projects and programs around the JPA. So taking a look at the budget summary, this has not changed at all. So total projected revenue given a 2.5% CPI is 23.55 million. What we do is we take 60% of that as the core, and then from that 60%, we take out 10% of that, and that's kind of the administrative cost. That leftover dollar amount, which is 12.7 million, then we work with that for the kind of the core budget. We tally up all the JPA-wide proposals, so that public education, operations, and environmental, GIS. We subtract that out, and that remaining dollar amount is what gets distributed to each of the zones according to the percent of dollars generated. So Central Marin, 23% of that core dollars amount is 1.588, et cetera, million. And then D-Space and local, those are 20% of the overall Measure C dollars. They go directly to member agencies to do smaller projects through the local dollars. And then for D-Space, the amount of dollars that go towards defensible space inspections and related items is far more than 20%, but that's the base. So then if you look at how those 20% dollar figures get distributed among the member agencies, this is the table that we refer to. This has not changed. I won't go into all the numbers, but this is the math, kind of the basis for the math and my very large and complicated spreadsheet that I used to tally up all the different projects. So in terms of updates, last time we talked about JPA-wide proposals, we discussed a number of different proposals that still had some questions to answer. So I want to go through and make sure we close the loop on those. We've had, as Mark mentioned, this has been a really challenging and complex year to develop this work plan. And that makes sense because there are a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of ideas, and we want to make sure we're doing the most that we can with these dollars. So one of the topics that was still kind of in limbo was the public education and outreach proposal. And that's the scope of work with Fire Safe Marin, who's a key partner, and we have a contract with them. We worked with Fire Safe Marin to determine whether or not the $1 million kind of benchmark targeted for this year was adequate to get what we really needed. So we went through and itemized those items in the scope of work to see if that was adequate. We talked with the operations committee, who really felt that we needed to up that dollar amount from $1 million closer to what that range, the kind of mid-high end of that range was. So operations committee suggested moving that dollar amount for public outreach from 1 million to 1.25, and that is a typo on my slide. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bill.
Yeah.
I wish it was April 1st or something. I have no excuse for that one. Sorry about that. So 1.25, apologies. For
We were all alert. You just keep-
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody bracing for.
I think Bill Tyler's dancing in the back.
I can edit that and then re-release this slide. That's terrible. Okay. Yeah, there was no agreement beforehand to make that change. So given that we were moving $250,000 from something into public outreach, we had to subtract that from somewhere else because the operations committee really wanted to keep the JPA-wide budget the same. aside from that extra million to Fire Safe Marin. So what we did was reduce the communications coordinator budget from 200,000 to 0 for the moment until more dialogue could happen with the operations committee and the ad hoc subcommittee to continue talking about that position. And then there's potential for, pursuing outside dollars for that item. You want to
Yeah,
add
just to
anything to that?
expand on that a little bit, the operations committee was not prepared to support the communications coordinator yet, because we kind of pushed pause on justifying the need for a communications coordinator. They see the potential need, but they just want to be convinced more. So over the next few months, I'm going to be working with the operations ad hoc subcommittee. And if they agree, then they'll propose to the ops committee, and then the ops committee will propose to you if we should have a communications coordinator. And it'll be incumbent upon us to find the funding to be able to fund that position.
Okay. Magically, that number has gone down to 1.25, just as Belle is 29 years old, and so am I. Okay, so then we also needed to find $50,000, and that was going to come from somewhere in the JPA wide, and we found that the Chipper Day program was going to have some rollover from 25-26, and that can supplement 26-27. So we're cutting 50,000 from the Chipper Day program, but that is not going to result in any reduction in services because we will still have around 1.4, which was the target. So that's great news. And then the resident grant program, a lot of discussions around that because, as you know, our grant specialist is heading on to graduate school. And so that elicited a lot of conversations about how to be more efficient. What does this pathway look like? So for Santa Fe and Novato will be taking their portion of the JPA-wide grant dollars and incorporating that into their existing programs. And then the D-Space Alliance, which is Central Marin, West Marin, and Southern Marin, will be working with Fireside because there's a grant portal, a product that they have already developed that can help manage the grant program, and we'll have a user interface where users can log in and find out where they are in the process and kind of automate more of the process. So the D-Space Alliance feels fairly confident that this is a good solution and probably provides some additional user benefits that weren't available to us previously.
And if I can add one quick thing,
Mhm.
even though we're decentralizing who is doing the work within the grant portal, the resident will not know. It's all through the same Fireside grant portal that we have all been using. It'll just be that if it's a Novato resident asking for a grant, it'll be a Novato employee that logs into our grant software to manage it, and so on and so forth. So the resident won't be able to notice the difference. And our goal is actually to improve the resident experience by doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So the new and improved JPA-wide chart with or the table with all of the proposals in it is here. And then just for context, I've got 25, 26, 24, 25, and 23, 24. So you can compare and see where the dollars go or how it's been trending. And I'll just note, you see a big jump in the environmental compliance, and that's because we've been relying on rollover from year to year. The first year we funded environmental compliance back in, it's not even on this chart, 22, 24, we budgeted about 750,000, and we've been living off that, the rollover ever since, and that has run out. So we are beefing it up a little bit. So it looks like a jump, but the costs have not changed very much. So that, and I do have a slide, if you have any questions about these, I have the slide deck elsewhere, but I'm going to move on to the zone proposals. So what I'm going to do is go zone by zone and just give you a quick high-level overview of those proposals. And this year I grouped them in kind of categories to make it a little easier to digest. So starting with Central Marin, local dollars, where are those going? Central Marin is pretty consistent from year to year. Their strategy has been, a few categories of projects that are proposed by each of the member agencies, and it doesn't really vary too much. And then they've added a new core project this year. So grants and direct assistance, local dollars, Corte Madera, Kentfield, Larkspur, they have included a voluntary abatement program. Sleepy Hollow has a direct assistance program. In terms of public education, Kentfield has a Fire Smart Garden, which will include maintenance this coming year. In terms of vegetation management, each of the jurisdictions have a proposal that is targeting invasive vegetation treatment, and that's really around roads and structures. And then staff for vegetation management, 4 agencies are sharing a position, and that's the Wildfire Preparedness Coordinator position. And that really helps manage vegetation projects and other related activities. So that's Fairfax, Town of Ross, San Anselmo, Sleepy Hollow. And then in terms of DSpace, each jurisdiction is putting their full DSpace dollar amount towards the Defensible Space inspection program. And then core proposals include one new item this year. So each year, Central Marin puts a portion of their core dollars towards the inspection program. They put a portion of their core dollars towards evacuation route vegetation management and the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break. And this photo is a before and after on that project. And then a new item this year is prescribed herbivory on open space parcels. And so there will be environmental compliance for that. And then moving on to West Marin, there are a few projects that include evacuation route vegetation management, including work in Inverness. And Marin County Fire has a project that they include basically every year that includes evacuation route work as well as work next to structures. In terms of vegetation management type projects in the local dollar amount, local bucket, Bolinas is paying for additional chipper days. Some understory maintenance of existing projects, so really targeting non-native invasive understory and small diameter trees like acacia, etc. One new item is from Marin County Fire is the Marin Emergency Radio Authority, or MIRA, and Critical Communications Infrastructure Expanded DSpace Project. So this is vegetation management around critical communications infrastructure to protect it during a wildfire event. In terms of alerts, Stinson Beach is proposing a mobile evacuation alerting and warning vehicle. So this won't pay for the entire item, but it's money towards a utility vehicle with a siren to warn residents and visitors during a wildfire evacuation. DSpace dollars, each agency is putting their DSpace dollars towards the inspection program. And then in terms of core proposals, evacuation route vegetation management continues to be a priority. And then implementation of the coastal fuel reduction network, a lot of dollars going towards that. And as you know, that's because we have temporary environmental compliance through the emergency proclamation that the governor declared in 2025. Moving on to Novato. Local dollars are largely going towards staffing and equipment. So this includes wildfire mitigation specialists. These are 4 positions and mostly focusing on inspections, but also on some other tasks, supporting vegetation management and other things. The Wildfire Mitigation Program Manager, that's one full-time position. It really works in both of those worlds in a number of different arenas. The Novato Fire Mitigation Ranger, this is an item that we've discussed previously. So it's one part-time ranger to reduce ignitions. And then equipment. So this is supporting projects, doing erosion control, could be radios, safety monitoring, equipment, outreach, etc. And then in terms of DSpace, Novato really leaned hard in terms of grants and direct assistance, and I think potentially coordination with the Ember Ready program. So supporting Zone 0, supporting direct abatement on parcels that have been abandoned or neglected, home hardening and defensible space, both grants and direct assistance. And then in the core arena, so we've got some vegetation management staff, and we have additional grant dollars for direct assistance and other items. And one item that's interesting is Nevada's hazardous vegetation removal project that really targets parcels right next to fuel reduction projects. So expanding that benefit from a shaded fuel break into the built environment. Roads and fire roads includes work along evacuation routes and some work along fire roads as well. And then in the public education arena, Fire Smart Demonstration Gardens, and this is a photo of one of their gardens. And then their Fire Adaptive Multimedia campaign, and that's a continuation from previous years. And then we also have fuel reduction projects that will continue to be maintained and implemented. The Valley Memorial eucalyptus removal project includes quite a bit of restoration work and coordination with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Ignacio Valley fuel break maintenance, Nevada open space fuel reduction, Marin Highlands fuel break maintenance, Nevada Bahia fuel break maintenance, Marin Valley goat grazing, and then of course the Greater Nevada shaded fuel break. And then I just noted, Marin County Parks is a big partner on the Greater Nevada Shaded Fuel Break and many of our projects. Moving on to San Rafael. So in terms of local dollars, there's quite a bit of staffing. So San Rafael vegetation and project management staff. So this is partial funding. You'll see this in 3 locations on 3 different slides. So local, core, and DSpace dollars going towards these positions. That's 7 positions that work on everything from vegetation management to inspections, public education, grant support, and evacuation, kind of alerting, notification, and public education around that. There's the ignition reduction. So this is the ranger, 1 ranger position supporting that item, and then you'll see that in another category as well. Public education includes their ongoing public education proposal, and then some Fire Smart landscaping. Also in local, and Santa Fe, this is a long list of projects, so get comfortable. This also includes fire hardened trails pilot projects. So this is vegetation management along trails. This is a kind of a test of the concept at Harry Barbier Park. Southern Heights Ridge fuel reduction. This is vegetation management at the southern end of Santa Fe. Small and responsive projects. These are small scale, kind of individual nuisance hazardous trees and things like that. Landscape restoration, that's planting native plants in fuel reduction areas. Deer Valley Fuels Reduction Project. This was part of the initial study, Mitigated Neg Deck, that you all saw recently. So starting work on that open space parcel. Environmental compliance and monitoring. This is supplemental funding for things like bird surveys and CEQA compliance and things like that. City park risk reduction. This is work within city parks of the non-landscape, kind of more wildly vegetated areas. So some fuel reduction near homes and near those parks or within those parks. And then Marinwood CSD, those local dollars are going towards fuel reduction activities in and around the built environment, so along roads and next to structures. In the DSpace category, we're looking at more staffing support, more support for public education, some more dollars for grants and direct assistance. So that's home hardening and DSpace using Fire Foundry, AmeriCorps, or other crews. And then Marinwood is putting their DSpace dollars directly into the Defensible Space Program, the inspector program. So moving on to Southern Marin. Southern Marin's DSpace dollars are going towards staffing. So the deputy fire marshal, vegetation management specialist, that's 2 positions, an inspector, 1 full-time inspector. Mill Valley is putting dollars towards staffing as well to support both those vegetation management and inspection programs. Muir Beach is putting DSpace dollars towards defensible space inspection program, and also some tree trimming in the built environment. Ooh, things got shuffled. Going back to San Rafael. So additionally, more residents assistance for home hardening defensible space, more staffing. Then in terms of vegetation management, open space fuel break maintenance, Marin Wood, this is the flashy fuels is the grazing work that they do. San Rafael San Anselmo Fuel Reduction Zone. Again, this is with Marin County Parks and other partners. There's quite a bit of rollover for 25, 26. So this is still going to continue, but their new funding is fairly low. San Rafael Hills Fuel Reduction Project. This is where we held that field trip and plenty more to do in that area. So, so some funding for that. And then the critical infrastructure proposal is around infrastructure that's needed during, before, during, and after evacuations. So an assessment of that. San Rafael Core. So wanted to highlight, let's see, emergency alert registration and evacuation awareness campaign. So this is getting the word out and making sure people are signing up for emergency alerts, evacuation route, vegetation management, and one proposal that is evacuation planning and implementation. And this is bringing on a consultant to look at evacuations within San Rafael and highlighting different neighborhoods in San Rafael and modeling traffic and really diving into creating evacuation plans for those neighborhoods and how do we get people out of there and onto Highway 101. And then safe parking guidelines, those are parking boxes and other thoughts for really narrow winding roads. How do you manage parking along those roads in order to get first responders in and people out? The fire road management includes vegetation management and other activities. And then San Rafael is going to be looking at Xyla plan. So this is the urban conflagration modeling. We had funding to do 10 pilot locations and the results were interesting. There's a lot of data to look through. So many entities are taking that data and trying to decide how to use that in small chunks. And San Rafael wanted to dive right in and take a look at the entire zone. So that'll be really interesting. Okay, now switching back to Southern Marin. So in terms of local dollars, staffing for inspections, staffing for their alert program with the emergency notifications and education. So that is the sirens and the education. That's an important component of that, and also evacuation maps. In terms of vegetation management, community fuels management, that's in and around the built environment, especially vegetation management program equipment. Same sort of thing as Novato, radios, erosion control equipment, safety equipment, etc. Local dollars from Mill Valley includes staffing for inspections, some public education, including fire safe gardens around city-owned properties in Mill Valley, additional support for the siren, the LRAD network, and then community fuels management, also vegetation management around structures, etc. In Muir Beach, local dollars supporting the Firewise community that is has been a theme from year to year. Equipment, this is a flail mower from Muir Beach. And then looking at core proposals for Southern Marin decided to really dive into, again, that direct assistance for home hardening defensible space and has 4 proposals here, the community adaptation program proposals, really just for different parts of the Southern Marin zone. And this is home hardening defensible space, direct assistance, and I think quite a bit of coordination with the Ember Ready program. And then we have various vegetation management projects that will continue to be implemented and maintained. So Tamalpais Homestead Valley Fuel Break and potentially adding acres to the south to extend that project. Sausalito Forest Health Project, that's a lot of coordination with GGNRA because that's right on the border with federal property. Ring Mountain Fuel Break, that includes a lot of coordination with, of course, Marin County Parks. Greater Mill Valley Fuel Break, so continued implementation of that 23-mile long fuel break. Muir Beach Upper Park Trail Fuel Break maintenance, and that's a fuel break along a trail in Muir Beach. And then equipment. Evacuation route work will include work on Terwilliger. A lot of hazardous, leaning, nearly falling trees have already been removed, and there's quite a bit still left to do. So a little more work in that arena. Work along Highway 1, so that evacuation route, both on the federal and non-federal side of the road. So that's all 5 zones. So what does that end up amounting to? Took a look at my overly complex spreadsheet and tried to simplify things in graphs and pie charts. And so I included a few here just for your interest. So if you split it up by goal, this is what it looks like. So goal 1 is related to vegetation management. The goal 1 numbers include staffing related to vegetation management and includes environmental compliance. It also includes vegetation management along evacuation routes. That's about 40% for the 26-27 budget. Goal 2, that's around 7%. That work is just inherently cheaper. Goal 3, grants, that's around 13%. Goal 4, public education, and that includes not just Fire Safe Marin, but each of the member agencies' proposals as well. That's around 7%. Goal 5, defensible space home hardening, that includes the inspection programs and then a few other items. That's around 33%. So if you take a look, I grouped the inspection programs as well as the direct assistance and grants programs to really look at that kind of on parcel component. So if you combine those into one category, that's that orange piece of the pie, that's 46%. So you could say that 46% of the Measure C funds for 26-27 are going towards inspections and grants and direct assistance on parcel. About 40% again for vegetation management, including the evacuation routes and then the other items. So I thought that was an interesting bit of math. So then if you compare, let's take a look at some of these categories. Vegetation management, for example. And again, this does include evacuation. These numbers, I excluded evacuation route projects, equipment, staffing, and environmental compliance, and really just looked at kind of crews doing vegetation management on the landscape. So this is how the different zones compare. West Marin, as you might expect, is a little lower than some of the other zones, but quite a bit of vegetation management going on in each of these zones. Now, if you look just at evacuation route vegetation management, the numbers come out something like this. So quite a lot going on in each of the zones, especially Southern Marin and West Marin. Southern Marin, a lot going on Highway 1. If you look at grants and direct assistance and direct abatement, the numbers look something like this. So as you can see, Novato is really leaning into this category this year. Then if you look at staffing, and these are not inspectors, so some of those combined positions, I subtracted out 1% of those positions that would be inspection. So if you just look at positions that are non-inspection, this is about how it goes. So West Marin is not hiring folks to do vegetation management or other things. Santa Fe is hiring quite a few more. So this is just kind of an interesting number of kind of relative comparison of the different zones. So with that, I want to invite Chief Mahoney to join us maybe at this mic over here. And I want to invite the Operations Committee to share their thoughts, or Chief Mahoney, the chair of the Operations Committee. So this year included 6 meetings of the full Operation Committee from December through May, and 3 meetings of the ad hoc subcommittee where we really dove into the nitty-gritty of the different projects and budget numbers, et cetera. One of the things that came out of the discussions with the Operations Committee was this idea that maybe we meet as the Operations Committee in some sort of strategic planning session at the very, very, very beginning of the process each year, maybe November, to really hash out kind of where they feel this the process should go for the next year, and have all of that ready to go before the ATC even starts coming up with project ideas. So we're really going to front load some of these operations committee tasks, and so we'll be keeping them even more busy next year. So apologies in advance, but I think it'll be a really useful exercise. Chief Mahoney, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, thank you, Anne. And I just wanted to say that one of the biggest takeaways for us, as Anne just mentioned, is to maybe get a little bit more of a head start on this next or this upcoming year. I guess it's already a couple months from now, but there was a lot of work put into this work plan. We created an ad hoc subcommittee. We probably met 3 or 4 times, along with numerous other operations committee meetings. For me, and the operations committee, there was a lot of stuff for us to talk about, and it was really, really interesting on the different ideas and work plans that everybody had. We really tried to take into consideration this board's desires to keep some of the items that are really important to the community, such as the chipper days and the direct assistance program. Out here. Okay. We wanted to really take into consideration the board's desire to keep some of the really important community desires, such as the chipper days and the direct assistance programs in consideration when we were creating this work plan, while also kind of working around some of these unforeseen things, such as the grant specialist leaving, and how are we going to continue to provide those opportunities for our community members without any type of interruptions that might be seen. So we're very proud of this plan. I'd also like to recognize the ATC committee. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting at the beginning of this and brought to us some really good ideas and some really good work projects that we took into consideration and then applied to this work plan. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So that brings us to the end of the presentation here. So the recommendation here is that you discuss, provide feedback, and then hopefully vote to adopt the attached resolution approving the draft fiscal year 26-27 work plan for Marin Wildfire.
And if I may add, you guys, it's obvious how much work went into this work plan. And that's work from your staff. That's work from the incredible people that are working for you, building these incredible projects. And you see that there's a little bit of a different flavor for each of the zones, and that's fine, because Novato has a different type of terrain, different type of roads network than some of the other areas, so, and then by having us have our member agencies build these projects, they're able to build the right project for their community, but still aligned with our 5 goals. So even though there might be a different flavor here or there, everything we're doing is still aligned with our goals and with our strategic plan. So I told the operations committee I really appreciate and admire the work that their staff did to create this work plan. Not my words, but Mercury's words when they came and visited us 2 days ago. And they've been going around to different parts of the state and having similar types of conversations about where they want to insure. And their comment to us is, you guys are so far ahead of everybody else. And when I look at our work plan, it's really easy to say, we have this ambitious plan. And then how often do you see a government entity put out an ambitious plan and it doesn't actually ever happen? Well, we've shown that we put out these ambitious plans and then we get them done. So I'm really looking forward to getting this 26-27 plan implemented, because there's some great work in there.
Okay, that was enormous. Even though we have seen this in print and we've been discussing it for a while, I'm sure there are comments from members of the board, So I would entertain questions and comments now. Director Goins.
Astounding product. Thank you all for all your work. I have a question about a specific project, the West Marin Mira Defensible Space project for $200,000. Why is West Marin paying for defensible space on Mira property as opposed to Mira constructing defensible space around its improvements in West Marin?
If we could maybe bring Gavin Albertoli over.
And I can touch on that. Did some of the defensible space extends outside of the Mira property. It's on other people's property. And so that's been a threat that Mira and all of the public safety agencies have been concerned about is the defense of those critical infrastructure. And it's like I said, it extends off the Mira leased property.
Yeah, I understand, but Novato, I think we pay over $1 million into Mira a year, and others. We all pay into this, and we all stand to benefit. And so I'm just arguing on behalf of West Marin. I'm in Novato, but I'm interested in fairness, and this could be a MWPA wide project. It could be taken off the top since we all benefit, or Mira could pay for it, but it seems unfair that West Marin is paying for, and I understand there may be some local benefit, but $200,000 is a lot of money around a facility that benefits all of us here. I would just argue that you could revisit that allocation of funds and where those funds came from. So thank you.
We have a representative from Marin County Fire, Gavin Albertoli. Would you like to add anything to this conversation, Gavin?
Hey, good afternoon, board. Thanks, Ann. I think Mark was spot on with the expanded defensible space part being the key here, moving outside of their small area where their infrastructure is and expanding that defensible space. And then to answer Bruce's question, because it's a local project, our department saw this as a need that needed to, or a project that needed to get done immediately. And so this is how we're getting that work done. Let me know if you have any other follow-up.
Director Kohler.
Yeah, I provided some comments beforehand and got my questions answered, but something that occurred to me, and I should have asked it before, and I know you've already explained this, so I apologize. Fire Foundry, I know we're putting 252,000. I think that's a good thing, but we haven't paid for that in the past. So could you, Mark, maybe explain? I know you've said this before, but I forgot.
So we've actually funded Fire Foundry quite a bit, but it's in the form of work. One of our member agencies will put the Foundry on one of their projects, and then they invoice us, and then we pay the Foundry. So that's how we've been funding the Foundry until we're going to continue to fund the Foundry in that way. This was a proposal that Marin County Fire, and Gavin's still here if he wants to expand upon it, was to help push the Foundry into even more projects. And so they designed that JPA-wide project to be able to spend equal time in each of the 5 zones. And the member agencies will be able to say, hey, I want the Foundry for this project, and it'll pull from that portion of the budget.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. So I don't need any further follow-up. Okay. Thank you.
I serve on Mira, and I understand the perimeter around Mira is really important because it does go outside of the actual places where we have towers, where we have power stations and all. It does feed all of the vegetation around it. It's very important to do what we're proposing to do. So thank you very much. Now back to the board. Yeah, Director Way.
Could you elaborate on Silo Plan? The only district or the only area using it is San Rafael at $50,000, but doing a little cursory look at their website, it's a pretty amazing program that they've got here. Is there a reason why we're not all using that, or it's not baked into our whole system, or has it been?
It has been.
Okay, so before I served on this board, that's so,
Last year, we received, this was one of those things where when you start building a reputation as a forward-leaning type organization, people start coming in and say, we want to give you a grant. And that happened to us in the tune of over $200,000 to have Xyloplan do 10 communities of data.
Okay.
And so we actually have Xyloplan analysis in 10 of our communities. And we got a proposal from Xyloplan to do the entire county. However, there is so much data in the 10 communities that, well, we felt that we wanted most of the member agencies felt they wanted to chew through the data that they got from the 10 communities first and then explore a subscription later on. San Rafael only had, of the 10, only one of those communities landed in San Rafael. So that's why they want to expand their footprint now.
okay. Do any of the other jurisdictions have expressed any interest in expanding and learning more through Xyloplan?
They absolutely. It's an amazing analysis. But the amount of data and work that can come from that is huge.
Got it.
They wanted to chew through that first and then revisit a subscription in subsequent years.
Okay, thanks.
In a sentence or two, what is Xyloplan?
Xyloplan is one of the new and emerging modeling fire models that actually go into the built environment. Until 3 years ago, no one was modeling how fire burns through the built environment. And not only does Xyloplan show how a fire goes into the built environment, how it'll spread into an urban conflagration, it'll give you nodes and say, okay, this is the spot that is your greatest risk. If you do this type of work, this is the return on investment that you will realize from that. And so it allows you really to be very strategic about the work that you're doing within the built environment to stop a urban conflagration.
Thank you for the explanation. Okay, are there any other questions? Director McMillan?
It seems like there's a lot of fire smart gardens. You mentioned Mill Valley and Kentfield and Novato, and I'm wondering if maybe we could have a button on the website that says fire smart gardens that are publicly accessible so the public could go and check those out. Master gardeners could help you publicize those too.
That sounds great.
And then my other question is, how do you want us to spread the word about all this great work and this upcoming work plan in our jurisdictions?
That's a great question. Newsletters, we need to get our final document online and also create that executive summary. So we have the short version. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I asked the question because I didn't want to do the work. So as long as you're volunteering to do the work, I'm happy to disseminate it,
Yes.
Anne. Thank you.
We will do the work and also work with Fire Safe Marin on some of the public outreach around this. Yeah, thank you.
I don't want to extend this, but I have some questions. First of all, I want to ask Chief Mahoney. We're delaying for another round of ops committee before we do our strategic planning. What is holding up the ops committee? What is your issues? What are they?
I think the only thing that we have pending right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, is that we need to look at the public information officer item that is still out there for the ops committee. That'll probably go to the ad hoc subcommittee, but usually the ops committee takes a break for the next couple months and then re-engages in November, or we're kind of slated to re-engage in November, which is a few months from now. To start looking at the work plan for the upcoming year.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, one other I'm just going to take just for a minute. Okay, so we've done a lot of changes. We've gone from zone 0 in a box, 0 out. Now we have Ember ready. And I'm hoping that in this next round, with this new work plan, we will make things really clear about which is which and which we're actually renaming, but it's basically the same thing. That's one comment. And the other comment is about the grants program. There are changes to the grants program that you've mentioned here today, and although it says invisible to the public, if someone came to me and said, Catherine, where do I go? I want to get involved, but I don't have the money to do this. Do I send them to my Southern Marin Fire? Do I send them to a site? In other words, let's make it really clear. Not only what you can get, but what the cycle is and who is money for what, so that we get more. Because from what I understand, for every dollar we invest, we get $6 back from the public investing in itself. So those are my comments.
And so remember, Zone Zero is Zone Zero. Zone Zero is the first 5 feet. We are not changing that name. The only name change we did was the program Zone Zero in a Box was a terrible name. And so we changed it to Ember Ready. That's the only change there. When it comes to grants, we have our easily accessible grants page that any resident, no matter where they live, if they go there, it'll point them in the right direction depending on what their jurisdiction they're in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And there was another comment. Oh, yes. Mayor
Thank you, Chair. So I have a question and then also a comment. So in terms of the grants, actually building on that, is there, being that we're self-taxing ourselves, is there available matching dollars at the state level? Have you seen any sort of conversation there that we could also tap into?
We have applied for multiple grants to support home hardened and defensible space. That was part of the testimony that I was involved in. There was a grant program that went to 5 or 6 counties, and Marin was not accepted into that grant program, mostly due to our demographics. And their goal was to fund grants for 2,000 homes. This grant program's 3 or 4 years old. They have done 200 homes. And I was able to provide testimony. Well, Marin Wildfire's grant program has funded over 5,000 homes. I'm bragging a little bit, but to further answer your question, for actually, we just had a meeting yesterday for the new release of the CAL FIRE grants. We are going after home hardened and defensible space funds.
Yeah, well, I think because we are doing something that you're not seeing throughout the state, it would also behoove the granting programs there to show that they can force multiply what's going on here.
We can show that we have the infrastructure to make it happen.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And then if I may, Chair, a comment?
Yes.
Ann, thank you for that great presentation. And I appreciate the pie charts. I think to have those readily accessible, that the community can look at it if they don't want to go through all the spreadsheets and all of the other charts across each of the jurisdictions. It really does show that we're meeting, MWPA is meeting what Measure C was all about. And I really think it's elegant how each of the projects also reflect the community or the jurisdictional priorities. And I think, to me, that's a strength of the program, because if it was cookie cutter, then it would show that it was probably not being as effective, and it was probably top down versus bottom up, which is what we want this to be. So incredible amount of work. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mayor Collins. Yes. Other comments? Director Goins.
So one other comment in the work plan, we all recognize the work that you did in building out the public information education program, and Citizen Tyler, thank you, and chiefs all. We went from $1 million to 1.25 to 1.3 something, but the proposal or the project in the work plan currently has ranges of dollars for specific objectives. And I'm wondering, are you going to dial that in to match 1.25? Because I think it currently goes, it's a low of 1 and it's a high of 1.3, I think. Can you please dial that in before we finalize this, Chief or Citizen Tyler?
I think you're talking about Fire Safe Marin's role. Is that, what do you specific?
There are lows and highs for each one, and you add them up, and one adds up to $1 million, and the other one adds up to, I think, 1.3. So we need to fix that.
Thank you. Do you have a specific reference chart or?
When we landed at 1.25 based on that range of where Bill was saying we would, if you had 1 million, this is what we were going to be able to do. 1.1, this is what we're going to be able to do. 1.3, this is what we're going to be able to do. So I think, we showed some willingness to meet that expanded 1.3. and we're going to be basically asking Fire Safe Marin to tighten things up a little bit, make sure that we get that 1.3 worth of work at 1.25. And the scope of work actually will be coming to the board in the June meeting.
Oh, that's good. So we have a chance to look at the actual scope of work.
Yep.
Thank you. Director, yes, go ahead.
Just when, because we have some other agencies that are doing public education and outreach, San Rafael, Novato, it does seem like, we know that Fire Safe Marin is the overall, but we do have these separate as well. And just like we were doing for the grants, have a footnote that, the resident grants also includes, Novato, San Rafael doing their own thing as well with Measure C money. I think it would be a good idea to point out that there's more public education and outreach than just the 1.25 for Fire Safe Marin. So have a footnote somewhere that shows that adding it up, it adds to X amount of dollars. And I didn't do that, but that way we can show that we're all in the same boat here. It's just that sometimes there's some separation. So to the extent that we have those kinds of things elsewhere in the work plan, it would be a good idea if we can point that out. Because, for example, for the grants, for the longest time, I was just going on the amount that we had JPA wide, and we have separate programs. So just consider that. I realize ton of work, great work. Thank you.
That's great. And that could be part of the kind of high level summary talking points that we distribute to help publicize this work. Yeah.
And
Thank
just
you.
as Mayor Collins said, we also are showing that we're doing it from the bottom up, not just from the top down. With our major education, that's two-way communication, not just one way. Okay, so thank you so much. Yes, please. Director, yes.
So I have something of a strategic question, and I don't know whether it actually belongs in this conversation about the work plan or whether it belongs in the budgetary conversation. They're obviously inextricably tied with one another. But I guess what I'm wondering is, best way to pose this, if you were building the plan or the budget, kind of both, from scratch without regard to the existing projects, would you allocate the money the same way that it is currently being allocated? So in other words, if the budget were organized around the highest priority risk reduction strategies, would you allocate the funds? Is this the ideal allocation of a portfolio of funding, right? We saw that pie chart. You've got 40, 45, 40 and 45%, I think, roughly between home hardening and defensible space and between vegetation management. So roughly parity on those numbers, roughly. Is that the right portfolio strategically? Science is evolving on fires, showing home hardening being perhaps more of a priority for preservation of property and structure loss and life safety risk, right? So you might want a portfolio that was actually more leaning toward defensible space and home hardening. So from a sort of, risk standpoint, if you were starting fresh, would you shift marginal dollars at all? Or is this really the ideal mix of projects and dollars for the highest risk?
I always say that there's always room for improvement. However, with having our subject matter experts, and as the mayor pointed out, at pushing the ground up, these projects are being designed by our subject matter experts that are closest to the problem and their communities, and we're providing them with an immense amount of data and modeling to support their subject matter expertise. So I do believe that we are landing on a good balance. As our bandwidth increases to help our residents with home hardening and defensible space, I think you're going to see our member agencies actually naturally start progressing towards more and more going towards home hardening and defensible space. But and I think we've seen that over the years, and we've seen that tilt start get into that, especially since vegetation management on projects on properties or lands that have not been touched in decades far more expensive than when we come back and retreat. So we're seeing a cost reduction in veg management go down because it's maintenance, which is allowing us to tilt up more in home hardening.
Right. So sorry. So as a follow-up, so that makes sense. I guess in a way, if I can put words in your mouth, what you're saying is it's actually not ideal right now, that you would, in an ideal world, like to see it shift, right? That the vegetation management becomes a smaller portion of the budget. I think that's what you effectively just said, in favor of increased investment in home hardening and defensible space.
What I'm saying, it's close. What I'm saying, I like the trend. We needed to put initial investment into vegetation management early, and then I'm liking the trend where we're decreasing the vegetation management and increasing the home hardening.
So the bottom-up approach is, I think we all agree, totally reasonable. Is there a way to similarly steer from the top down more in that strategic direction, if the ideal budgetary mix is more aligned with what you just described?
And I think that's a great topic for our strategic retreat as we approach it.
And in my opinion, this is what we are doing. As we progress and get more data, this body is the one that can say, but the public is telling us this, or the data is telling us that, and we need to shift the priorities. And that's, again, perfect for strategic planning, and it's an excellent question. Thank you so much. Any other comments? Okay, I'll take comments from the public. Are there any members of the public here or online who wish to make a comment on this action item?
It does appear that we have at least one public comment. Several hands raised for comment. I will call the first one. And for those delivering comments for this item, please remember that comments may be no longer than 2 minutes in length and should be respectful to the community.
And would you please state your name at the beginning?
Yes, my name is Belle Cole, and I'm really pleased to be listening and part of this conversation. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I've been fortunate to be involved in some of the activities taking place that put together the new plan, and I just wanted to emphasize the excellence of the support and also of the openness of the discussions that we had. And there were many discussions, and I just want to compliment both the staff and the others who are volunteering to work on this. This is a model, I think, that is going to work extremely well. And as people get to know each other better, it even gets more effective. So I just wanted to comment on that. And then I just wanted to make to say to Catherine Way that we are thinking of inviting Daniel Swain to an ESP meeting soon. And so we'll coordinate that with the board. And thank you very much for honoring me the other day. And I appreciate the companionship and the work that we all do together. And I think this was a superb meeting, and thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much for all the countless hours you've put in. And happy to recognize you, and you're a real gem to this organization. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there someone, yes, anyone else online?
We do. It looks like at this time we have 2 additional hands for comment. Again, please remember that comment should be no longer than 2 minutes in length and should be respectful to the community.
Please state your name.
Hi, it's Stephen Keys. I've been in Marin only 8 years, but this county really has an amazing citizenry and organizations and people committed to providing a lot of involvement, intelligence, just amazing. And I guess the main thing I want to say is that Marin Wildfire and Fire Safe Marin and Bell Coles, ESPP, really are close to the top of the list of organizations that are doing great work here. And I thank you, and the whole community is really appreciative of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments, and you're always involved. So thank you also for your involvement. Is there someone else on line that would like to speak?
There is. It looks like at this time we have one additional comment. And for those who are still joining us on the remote environment, if you would like to deliver a comment, please press *9 to raise your hand. And when it is your turn to speak, press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. For the next speaker and any additional, please remember that your comment may be no longer than 2 minutes in length and should be respectful to the community.
Please state your name.
My name is Michael Kemrick, and I'm a Firewise leader in San Anselmo and a member of the Fire Safe Marin Ambassador Program. And I wanted to thank the people at MWPA for finding ways to reinforce the budget for Marin Wildfire, for Fire Safe Marin. Even though it's a bit less than last year, you've managed to keep it at basically at the same level. And I'm just very appreciative of that. I wanted to share one small story. I was tabling at Bon Air Shopping Center for Fire Safe Marin, and a woman came by whose daughter is the head or lead of the Fire Safety Council in Santa Cruz County. And she said her daughter says that Fire Safe Marin is the gold standard for fire safety councils and is the one everyone looks to. So I very much appreciate the fact that you're willing to continue to fund it at the levels that are needed to maintain its really excellent position and personally my involvement with the organization. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And that's very interesting that we're getting out of the area comments. That's great. Are there any other people who would like to speak?
There are no additional hands for comment at this time.
Okay, for no additional public comments, then I will now bring it back to the board for additional comments and a possible motion.
I'd like to make a motion to have us adopt the attached resolution to approve the work plan.
I have a motion from Director Kohler. Do I have a second? Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the adoption of the work plan?
Aye.
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 It's adopted, yes? Good. Oh, right. All those opposed? Any abstentions? I got carried away. Thank you so much. It's approved. Thank you for your work and yes. All right. That's a big one. So, and now we are going to the budget for our fiscal year 2026-27. Mark, will you provide the board with the staff report on this item?
You bet. The heavy work has been done. So I'll be able to, because of all the work that we just went through, I'll be able to go through our budget fairly quickly. The real important column for us to look at today is that last column, the preliminary FY27 budget. But we provide FY26 data so you can see the comparisons. But this also shows you how we came to the 23,551,370 as our new projected revenue. What we do is we take last year's actuals, and since we're a property tax based on square footage, and we are a slow growth county, it's pretty easy for us to calculate what our next year's revenue is going to be. We add the 2.5% for the COLA from the CPI, and then we always are very conservative with how much interest we budget for, and so that's how we came up with the 23,551,370. This next piece that you're looking at, these are all the projects that Ann just described through the core, bundled up by what type of category they fall within the budget. And to Director Kohler's comment, if you look at the community grant program, it shows 1.48 million where it's 900,000 for the JPA wide grant program, But since there's other core grants, it does get bundled up in there. And also, let's look at the public education, which is this item down here. It shows 1.6 million because that's the 1.25 plus the other core projects. What it doesn't capture, though, is where, like using Novato as an example, putting their entire DSpace budget into grants. That 1.6 or the 1.4 million doesn't include that. So when we advertise, when we talk about Measure C dollars going, we will make sure that we capture those local dollars coming over. Defensible space, it's easy for us to figure that out. It's the 23,551. 20% of that is DSpace, 4.7 million. And then we use our handy dandy tables to figure out how much goes to each of our member agencies, dispersed 3 times a year. The first disbursement is in January at 55%. The next disbursement is in April at 40%, and the final disbursement of 5% in May or June. Local projects, again, easy math, 20%. And then we get into our admin, and our admin budget can be no larger than 10% of the core. So 10% of our core is 1.4 million. You see that we have 105,000 set aside for our financial administrative services from the town of San Anselmo. Our legal services has consistently come in low. However, we feel that we should continue to budget at the level that we have. That way, if something untoward were to come, we have reserves to be able to handle that. The personnel, there's only 3 positions that are covered through administration. That is the executive officer, planning program manager, and our management analyst. And then we split the differences between services and supplies and professional services. And I'm really happy to say that we've consistently, we have to come in under 10%, and we have consistently come in at 8 and 9% for our administrative services. If you remember 2 years ago, we had enough rollover from admin that we actually pushed money from admin back into the core so we can get more work done. And so that's how efficient we've been with our administration. And then the last pages are, or the last section is where our grant revenue is. And when I was reviewing this morning, I caught an error, and it's these 2 totals right here. This 364 should actually be, actually, no, this is right. When I was looking at it, I had it backwards, but when I was looking, no, disregard, it is right. I was looking at it with my eyes crossed this morning. I guess I did not have enough coffee when I did that. Like I said, the hard work for the budget's been done. I can take any questions. I can leave the screen share up, or I can take it down. I can go to a spot as you need.
No, this is fine. So let me ask, are there any questions right now from the board? Director Adoni.
Thanks, Mark, for the presentation. Couple quick questions. We've got $25,000 budgeted again for tenant improvements. Just wondered what's being planned there. We've done that for several years.
It's incremental improvements for mostly this room to increase mostly. We've really been focusing on accessibility. One of the next things that I want to do is it's called a hearing loop. So people who have an appropriate type of hearing aid would be able to log in to our hearing loop and automatically get the feed into their ear, the automatic doors and other accessibility issues.
Thank you, Mark. And then lastly, Zero in a Box, $208,000. Again, I'm hearing we're not doing that, but how does that fit?
We're still doing it. It's just called Ember Ready.
Okay, thank you.
Could clarify that.
The name of the grant at Marin Community Foundation is Zone Zero in a Box. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
Mark, thanks. It's very clear. Thanks for the simple math. The Finance Committee did meet, and we had a discussion about that we do indeed have a reserve, $2.7 million in reserve. I don't see this, but I just for perhaps those that are new, that we are maintaining $2.7 million in addition to this budget for reserve, and there's policy and provisions regarding how we might expend those funds if we ever need to. So I just wanted to mention that, Mark.
Yeah, You bet. Thank
Thank you so much. That's important. Thank you. Okay, so are there any other comments on the budget? Okay, now I will take public comments for anyone in the room or online on this item. Are there anybody online that wishes to speak?
And it does appear that we have one hand raised for comment.
Okay.
Please remember that your comment may be no longer than 2 minutes in length and should be respectful to the community. Please state your name. And to mute and unmute yourself, you would press *6. Oh, and it looks like that person is no longer interested in speaking. We have no
Okay.
comments at this time.
So hearing no other, or seeing no other comments, let's bring us back to the board for discussion and a motion. Could I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026-27 MWPA budget?
So moved. Second.
Director Finn, thank you.
Second.
Second, Director Adoni. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Abstain? Hearing none. The motion passes. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Great. And now we move on to item 9, committee reports. But I just want to say this was enormous, and thank you so much to all of the people involved, from the ATP, the Ops Committee, all of the members of the board, the Executive Committee, and all the special committees, the Finance Committee. This was a heavy lift, and you did an incredible job. So thank you so much. All right, now on to committee reports. Fire Safe Marin. A Fire Safe Marin rep. Well, we know who's going to give it's my speech here. So, Chief Tyler, will you please provide the report?
Thank you very much. Thank you all for the support that you had through the work plan and the budget funding. I very much appreciate that. We thought we were going to run long today, and we wanted to be respectful of your time. So we're really standing on the report that we submitted. I will say that this May, with the wildfire awareness rollout campaign, was incredible. It was supported not only the CWPP introduction and workshop, but all of the agencies picked up the materials, and every couple of weeks we're putting out information, which was excellent. And then this month we're starting the Open Your Report to try and drive people to walk with their inspectors, to open the report, identify something that they need to change and make that change and report it back. So that's a lot of focus going forward. We're getting towards fire season now, all the fires down in Southern California that are going. And so you're going to see an increase in activity in both, our tabling events and presentations and the trying to get the public on board. So thank you very much.
Well, that was really brief. I want to thank you for our meeting at the, when was it? On May
2nd.
May 2nd. And all the things that you did and put together, and for emceeing the event, and for the inclusion of comments. And I don't know how many, I think a lot of you were there. And so it was really a good event. So thank you so much to you for that.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. Now, are there any questions before we let him go? Yes, Director Way.
Just as a question, 1.25% of our million of our budget is going to Fire Safe Marin, but I feel like we often shortchange them on their ability to give us a good presentation. If it's ever possible, if we could have occasional meetings where they're bumped up higher in the agenda, so that we get a chance to really hear what Fire Safe Marin is doing in greater detail, I would really appreciate that.
Happy to do that.
Probably not at every meeting necessarily, but I really feel that they come in and they come in and don't get a fair, don't often get a fair chance to really reflect to us what they're doing.
Thank you. I also want you to know, I read the IJ like older people do, and there are constant ads and things. There were headlines above the banner on the first page. All of these things really do help, announcements. So thank you for all of that. You keep us well aware. Any other comments or No questions? Wow, that was great. Thank you so much, Chief Tyler. This
Thank
was
you.
great. Okay, so going on to the Operations Committee report. Mark, did we sort of have one? Or, I mean, as a part of our presentation, Chief Mahoney was here. Would we consider that? Okay, you have something else to add?
I'm going to show my slide that I didn't have for the last presentation, which is this one.
Oh, nice.
Happy birthday, Belle.
And you, it was your birthday as well, right?
Well, no, I'm just 29 always. No, the Operations Committee, that was really the report for the Operations Committee until we meet again to strategize. And then you'll hear more from the Operations Committee ahead of the board strategic planning session.
Great. All right, we're moving on to item 10, information items. So you have all of those in your pack?
Director Hilliard?
Yes.
My apologies. Before we move on to the information items, we did need to go out to public comment on that last
Thank you. Okay.
committee report, and we did have a hand raised between Fire Safe Marin and the Operations Committee. Please remember that your comment may be no longer than 2 minutes in length and should be respectful to the community. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Belle Cole again, and what a wonderful picture, Ann. I just wanted to say that on June 9th, the ESP, Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, is having its June meeting, and it's all about Fire Safe Marin. And Bill Tyler will be the presenter. So try to find ways to invite you, anybody who's interested, to come for the part of it where he will be speaking. Just wanted to inform you about that. I forgot. Thank you.
Do you have a time and location?
Yes, I do. Yes, it's online, and it's 2 to 4 p.m. on the 9th, which is a Tuesday.
And we register that for that online? Is that what we, or we can just?
I'll find a way to get an invitation to you, and I'll tell you how to sign in for the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
So now we go to, is that the end of public comment for this?
There are no additional hands for comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do any of you have any more additional comments? Okay, hearing none. So item 11 is board members' requests regarding future agenda items. Are there any
I'll just
requests?
tell you that June's going to be a busy month. We are going to have our biomass presentation in June. We will have a handful of other things that we're taking action on in June. July is going to be when we bring the CWPP to the board for approval, and there'll be some other things like voting for president and vice president, and also we have to elect San Anselmo as our treasurer. We had the professional services agreement that got approved, but then the first meeting within the first fiscal year, we have to vote them in as treasurer. And I'm shooting for August to be a month off to give us all a little time, a little rest from board meetings.
And when are we squeezing in the strategic planning session?
That'll be within July, August, which is another good reason not to have a board meeting in August.
Okay, I don't think we're getting major arguments on that. Okay. All right. So thank you so much to everybody. We have no additional items. So thank you everyone for your participation, and we are adjourned.